to introduce myself real quick again. For those who don't know me, I'm Colin. I do our marketing with Great Leaps primarily, and have worked for Great Leaps my whole life. So that's being the son of Ken there. It's always been a piece of my life, and I'm happy to be a part of something making an impact on so many kids' lives. But again, today we're talking about the last two kind of components of reading that are most critical, and we're going to kind of kick it off by focusing on stories and fluency. So I guess, Dad, if you want to just jump off there of maybe the proper, in your eyes, definition of fluency, and start with the uniqueness of the Great Leap stories.
Well, I like simplicity, and Cecil Mercer, who I worked with and loved for a long time as my mentor, and from professor to mentor to friend. Cecil, these elements are critical as we look at fluency. It's reading with understanding. Boy, that gets it really. So, and it now needs to approach the speed of spoken language. And then we can talk about prosody, that full understanding. So it's not just word reading. It is the depth of reading. It is reading with full understanding, minimal mistakes, proper intonation, proper rate. So that fluency, that's the kind of definition I'll hold to. And I do want to note for everybody, because in our world, a lot of people around, when you say the word fluency, all they hear is ready, set, go, you're into speed. I've had to slow kids down before. Yeah, I'm into rate, that's speed. But I said this a million times, slow down and you'll speed up. And they'll go, no. And I said, watch. and see, the jackrabbit readers, they're in such a hurry to make me happy. They're in such, see how many words they've already read and only got to the first sentence? Slow down, you'll speed up. It goes both ways, and sometimes that's ignored. So Great Leaps was called a fluency program. I never called it a fluency program, ever. Cecil Mercer called it a fluency program. I just called it Great Leaps Reading, and I knew it wasn't a full reading program. I had to teach kids to read and read fast. And I had to teach them to read quickly. I didn't have forever, and only have 5 to 10 minutes a day if I was going to reach all 100 kids. So we reached them. Great Leaps was within the attention span of a kid, and now to the stories. Reading is more than skills. Reading is reading for meaning. Reading is reading. Now, it takes skills to read, no doubt. But when we measure a child's success in reading, we want to measure their ability to read connected text. Read it with meaning, read it with understanding, read it with proper speed, read it with low errors. And I like to watch, what word attack skills do they have when they encounter the unknown? What mental skills do they have when they encounter the unknown? This is all part of our science of reading. And that science of reading is watch children behave. And the best behavior I can see in reading is watching them read. And that goes to our stories. And again, the one thing I continually hear is, oh man, your stories are different. And then I'm told on how I should write my stories, and told what I need to do in all my stories. And I'm too old for that. I've already done it. And here is what I've done and why I do it. And I did it for my kids.
So I got the first note here about not using, or why you don't go with decodable text.
All right.
Hold on a second.
So suddenly I wrote these stories to get movement, and movement that generalizes, and movement that succeeds, because I don't have forever. I had to save these children's lives, and it's exactly how I believed it. And the stories are just a critical. I need to hear them reading connected text. It is very difficult to teach. It's difficult. It's impossible to teach intonation to me with as skill building. Now you can kind of do it in phrases, kind of, but stories are what opens it up. And then I wrote stories for the kids, not like most publishers do, for textbook review committees.
Lisa, do you have a note real quick?
Oh, no, sorry.
Oh, okay. No worries.
So the
Sorry.
stories are written for children. I got lambasted from a exclusive private school in Massachusetts, and she told me my stories were sophomoric. And I'm an English major. I knew what the word meant. And I go, ma'am, my sophomore, that's like ninth grade. And in my stories, and someone knocking at my window. And my stories are not for ninth graders. Generally, that's way beyond mine. So mine are not yet sophomoric. Mine are stupider than that, ma'am. They're written for the kids, not you. And the kids like them. And if they don't and didn't, I need work to do. So the stories, first of all, are written for children. They really, really are. And children change. I know that. So I have to change with this. And will. And with digital, we have that potential to grow. So the stories are different because one, and this is the big argument going on, is decodable text. Mine are decodable mostly. I mean, I have no qualms whatsoever throwing non-decodable words in that are essential to the art of a story.
Is that because the primary goal is the relevance, I guess, and within the grade level, but keeping it?
They're carefully gradated, so indeed it's level text, but it's not all decodable. I went back to a lot of early stories just to take a look today, and it's primarily decodable. But when a story is so contrived to be decodable and to be on the lessons, the exact lessons that the student is on, when the stories are that contrived, they do not ring like living language. They do not connect to the reality of that student's language. And so suddenly you've got a behavioral separation that I don't want. I want my stories to talk to the child, to have that language grow with them from the story, that indeed the story is talking to them. There, as Ken said, listening with their eyes. That
Lisa,
is huge.
do you want to jump in real quick?
Yeah, I do. One thing that Ken mentioned was, and I've been asked this question myself, is, but what if they haven't had those phonics skills yet? And that's the whole idea of decodable text, is they only have stories that they have mastered the skills for. And I just want to briefly talk about one of my kids, Owen. He is severely, profoundly dyslexic. As you can see by, and it's been almost 2 years, he's on exercise 20 in phonics. So he's working on some blends, consonant blends. He's on exercise 20 in phrases also. But he's on story 42 because the phonics isn't holding him back. And the stories are what matters. So one of the reasons that controlled text doesn't make any sense to me is then you have Owen, who's excelling and is able to read 3 years harder stuff, 3 or 4 years harder stuff, but he doesn't have all of the phonics down pat. And that's okay. I care more about his reading in continuous text than about his phonics. So that's one of the things that I wanted to touch off of from there.
Yeah, that's a great point. We have a question here from Carolyn as well that says, Ken, I remember you saying that you wrote your stories about your community to capture student interest and to provide background. Is that still true? Which I think ties in well to the next point that's on there about content-based stories versus kind of your approach to story writing.
There's funny stories on that. Yes, I'm a Southerner, and almost everybody else's stories in the whole world either involve New York City or Los Angeles. Well, the United States is a whole lot more than that. And I'm a Southerner. I'm a 7th generation Floridian. So not only am I a Southerner, there's a lot of Florida in my stories. And I remember Eileen Marzola from New York City talking to me about a young girl running into her classroom saying, Miss Marzella, I saw one. I really saw one. They're real. And she goes, what? a 16-wheeler. I counted. There's 16 tires on that boy, just like the story. So here goes. 16-wheelers are a very Southern thing, and it connected to New York City kids. Data is very important on stories. And originally, man, I love Ogden Lindsley when he says that's concerning research. That's why we have a rat. We think all these stuff because we've been to school and we know everything, but sometimes we don't. That's why we have a rat. Let's check this sucker out. Because when I first came along, I thought, man, I might have to write stories for North Carolina. I might have to write stories for Kentucky. I got to write stories for New York City. I got to write stories for girls. I got to write stories, for, whoa, I can't write that many stories. I'm not a girl. Never have been. I am who I am. And what we found out through data, this is cool. I can't tell a kid from New York City on the data from a child living on a reservation in California, from an inner city kid from the Bronx. The data is the data, and somehow, perhaps provincial, we're connecting the same joy we're getting in the Bronx, we're getting in Zuber.
So why specifically taking that approach as opposed to others that try to work in both content while doing the reading remediation?
Now the content, oh man, I got nailed, and it's I'll just say his name. We're an intimate group here. Joe Torgerson, famous guy from FSU, Tallahassee, famous in fluency. I bet I taught more years than he ever taught, but that's beside the point. Bet I got a better football team too. But that's besides another point. He contended that because of our students' lack of content knowledge in the world and their poor exposures to language, that we had to use content stories to teach fluency. And au contraire, no, you don't. I have to have them reading first. They hate stuff. They have been punished like you won't believe. They have been punished by 4 years of school and being in the last reading group and being treated like they're stupid and feeling like they're stupid and believing they're stupid. Okay? Punishment enough. They don't want to hear that Eli Whitney invented the cotton gin. They just don't. As soon as you throw that, are all about Amerigo Vespucci. They don't care. They hate that stuff. They have been punished.
Marie, do you want to jump in real quick?
Marie.
So you say you want to write stories that the kids like to read, not that they have to read.
They take part and enjoy. It's written to them, not at them.
Exactly.
It's really, really to them. It needs to talk to them. It needs to relate to them. And they don't care at this moment about Eli Whitney and whatever that drink is he invented. It sounds horrid. But look at, this is where we go, and there's real reasons for it. We went to the beach. Simple sentence. Now, what goes on in the child's head reading that? That's also why I don't have pictures to start with. We went to the beach. Who's we? Very first word sets these great neural circuitry spinning. We can be your mine is my dad, my mom, and my brother, all packed up into a 1959 Chevy going off to Jacksonville Beach and the boardwalk and the pinball machines and the shade for this redheaded boy. All these memories are flooding. We went. How to get there? Went in the car. And what's really cool is Dad was a teacher. We never had much money, but if we went to the beach, we always stopped somewhere ahead of time to get some snacks because it's cheaper than the places on the boardwalk. So went. So we went in the 1959 Chevy to the beach. What beach? That involved. Look at just one sentence and what it's doing in my head. Lots. Next, pleasure centers. If I were on an fMRI for all of this, pleasure centers are lighting up like crazy. That's the essence of beginning reading, removing the punishers through pleasure, through reward, removing what has been, you cannot be punished and rewarded at the same time. They're mutually exclusive behavior. So when reading becomes a pleasurable activity, we begin undoing damage, and stories. Story is the best way to do that. Success, so it's 50-50. Having children win when they've always lost, having them competing against themselves and thus winning or tying at worst, that's what engenders this academic excitement coming from our children after we got them for 2 or 3 weeks. That's what's engendering all across this country. The New York City, what we just went through with that IEP group, the excitement the teachers are talking about concerning how the children feel about what they're doing, and then that translates to the tutors. This is great. I'm having a great time, especially for schools. So on and on. The stories have a huge behavioral impact, and I won't change that theory if I have to continue standing alone the rest of my life concerning story writing and emergent readers.
Real quick, sorry, you'll hear my bird in the background. I'm going to try to keep myself muted, but Lavinia, we're getting a little bit of background noise from your phone, so I'm going to mute you real quick. But you should be able to unmute yourself if you have a comment or question for us. And Lisa, I see that you have unmuted yourself, so.
Yeah, please don't change how you do stories, because then we won't be, I don't think we'll be getting stuff like this. I have 2 kids that I work with, both siblings, both pretty heavily challenged reading wise. One has been retained already. The other was threatened with it. And I just found this Facebook post on their mom's page. My kids have started to really enjoy reading me books at night, and we have read all the books in our house. Where is a good place to buy kids' stories, and name your favorite kids' book? So these kids who absolutely hated reading now are reading to their parents each night. They love it. Motivation matters, and it's not because they're being beaten over the head and forced to read to their parents. They're doing it because they are loving reading, and that matters. If you're a struggling reader, one of them has already left back. Now they're winners.
Oh boy, that's whole other talks about retention. But I abhor that very idea. But going ahead about successes, I watched Devontae, and that was Lisa's first student, I believe. And on recording, you hear Devontae trying desperately, a 4th grade boy, big boy, trying desperately to read a 2nd grade passage. It was way over his head. And he's a 4th grader, late 4th grader, I believe. And he was reading at 25 words a minute, which is that is never reading, ever. 25 words a minute makes no sense. But he was so frustrated. One of my favorite scenes in all the Great Leap scenes, because I know that scene in my world, Devontae slamming his fist on a desk or chair and pleading in his heart of hearts, I hate it when it doesn't make sense. I heard you, Devontae. I heard you. Guess what? Eli Whitney invented a cotton gin. Doesn't make sense. You're winning, Devontae, and now he's probably shaving. Unbelievable. But we have him on tape reading 190 words a minute in 1 year. 190? That is flying, man. I love it. That world out there does. I got so much flack from putting a kid on YouTube reading 190 words a minute. That's not reading. That's speed. Man, can't you hear intonation? That is reading. And I read easy books like Steinbeck at about 400 words a minute, unless I want to stop and enjoy. And that is practicing. Boy, for this group, this is a good group here. I've got a challenge, and this is a reading challenge and a story challenge. How do we build up and chart silent reading? Don't answer now, because think about it. Because we have to get silent reading up, and we got to get it up past, if they're going to college, or if they're going to any kind of fun stuff, you got to read past 180 words a minute or 140 words a minute. You got to get up near 300, 400 and read it, not skim it. but that's a challenge. That's a challenge in story writing. The next challenge we're going to have coming up, and we're working on it, is reading is longer than 1 minute. We've got to work on their stamina. We have to work on stamina in reading. And yes, I'm very aware of that, but I can't work on stamina when they hate what they're doing. I got success breeds success, and I want to let this team here and this group here know where we're going and why we're going. And we can't do everything. We're small. So you do the essentials first, because I know full well when you become an independent reader, story reader, text, when you become an independent reader, the environment takes over. You won't go backwards. That's why Great Leaps ends at stories where they end. I could go on forever. I write novels, not for
Marie,
kids.
you got something to jump in real quick?
Yeah.
Yeah. The teacher that I've worked with for a long time, I volunteered with, not anymore, but she would work on stamina by giving them goals. Like she would time them and watch when they got bored with their books and started throwing them around and stuff. And then she'd say, okay, we went for 5 minutes. How long do you think you could read today? Let's go for 8. You want to go for 8? And some kids will say, no, let's try 10. Says, okay, but if we don't get 10, we're going to go back to 8, okay? And they would do that. And she would time them, and she would stop when the first kid started not reading. So she has these rules. You have to have your eyes on the book. You have to be in a spot. You have to, her rules. So she times them, and they get a party at the end of the week for achieving certain goals in the classroom. And that's one of her goals.
Marie,
I love that.
Marie, can you write this down? We have many classroom teachers that have all day with their children almost when they can. That is a great strategy for within the classroom rather than our 15-minute tutoring session.
Yeah.
Can you write that down so we can share? The idea of that Great Leaps community page is to share things like this, because there's so much and it's so neat. We'll talk later.
So where do I go to write that down?
Colin, you had to send it.
Well, you could either, if you just send me a note in an email, we could post it on our Great Leaps page and it would go out to everybody, and that would be great.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And that too, speaking of Devontae, made me think of one of the notes that we have here of, and also where we're going with the program is, what about those kids that are, maybe past the 5th grade reading level, but still reading too slow, or still are working on the challenges of, the increased demands and content-based reading in the classroom and so forth. Kind of what are some strategies, since we don't have the Great Leaps program for it built quite yet, that you'd have them do?
Here's what I like and have done, and it's neat for talking to parents about this, because first of all, they can't believe that I'm a Great Leaps guy and I'm giving them something for free that doesn't have any money involved. And this also really matters with dyslexic students who can read at the 9th grade level. It's just at 126 words a minute, and they're going to be going to a high quality college next year. So what I did, and the data we have, and it certainly isn't as much as I want, but the data I have is, what I would do in my room is, when a child is there and they trust me, boy, that's the Great Leaps. You now trust me that mistakes don't kill you. Go to the library, pick out the hardest book there, and I don't mess with me now. Pick up the hardest one there. I want a hard one that you want to do your assignments from. Make it hard. All right, bring it to me. I'll get a passage out of it. I put together about a 200-word passage, and I do the Great Leaps thing with them. You read the passage, I immediately correct. We go over errors. If a word is bizarre and they don't know what it means, I tell them what it means with my little ability here of putting everything at the 3rd and 4th grade level. And I do that for 1 week, 5 days, same story. And what we've got with that strategy is a 25% or so a month. Of course, that's a curve, increase in reading speed. So we can increase the reading speed in 1 or 2 minutes a day with that read, reread tactic on very difficult. If it's too hard and they don't like it, that's their fault. Go get me another book. You picked it. We do have some passages somewhere on the Great Leap site that goes all the way up to the 12th grade level if you need passages. But that is for those students reading. They don't need the Great Leaps. The stories are too easy. They need the speed building. And you can knock off a couple of things by building up that speed. I'm writing some stories now and playing with the idea of stories that can take 5 or 6 minutes and see what those lead to work on that and to put some humor in it for those kids who who still hate reading and still need speed building, and yet they're at upper levels, and things were like, I took a pet manual and the story there of, how to raise your pet and the proper care and treatment of your pet. Well, the pet I picked was spitting cobras. And, so when you're taking your spitting cobra out on a walk to the park, realize you got to stay 6 feet away or so from people, but if they do hit somebody, good Lord gave us 2 eyes. So you got the satire and humor and hopefully you guide them to looking up some more stuff about spitting cobras. And from there, you learn about Egypt. And from there, you learn all kinds of fun stuff. Poisons, one thing leads to another. A great thing about reading and stories.
That makes me think too about the next step or the last piece of it, which is comprehension. And, it's one thing to read the words on the page, and then it's sometimes another thing to understand how they tie together and the bigger meaning. So, I guess if you want to talk about how that ties into fluency and kind of how we approach it.
A piece we leave out of comprehension is good teachers can hear it most of the time. I can hear comprehension because of the intonation. I can get a story like, went down the road and kicked a can, kicked that can to Neverland. Whoa, that's robot reading. It's not how it should sound. I'll model. And I learned this from being in elementary schools, from librarians reading stories. Increase your intonation 25%. Went down the road and kicked the can. Kicked that can to Neverland. Kicked it there and back again to Neverland. That's reading with intonation. So intonation's a critical part. We teach it through modeling primarily, with joy and with fun and getting it out of the kids. And there's no punishers, but I can hear robot reading. That brings me back to Dr. Marzola and why she found Great Leaps. Her kids could figure out any word probably on the face of the planet Earth, but they weren't reading. Their accuracy was unbelievably high. They weren't reading. She needed the bridge to get them from word reading and word knowledge to fluent reading. And she called Great Leaps that bridge. We will bridge that, and that bridge leads to comprehension. Another point of comprehension, and this is my granddaughter, Christiana, was diagnosed with hydrocephalus, frightening, but I didn't know it at the time. What the diagnosis was, we were watching frightening symptoms, and she went for an MRI. And I had the MRI report emailed to me. I didn't understand it. At my church, Floyd was a brain scientist. I have a great background in I took German and French in high school, and I know my Latin and Greek and Germanic. I know all that fun stuff. So I could read that sucker. Believe me, I could read it with intonation. Didn't have a lick of an idea what it meant. So reading and knowing all the words, reading and knowing the sentence structure and correct intonation, still was zero comprehension. Floyd heard me since I read it correctly and told me exactly what it was. But that is my whole key to our kids in world and word knowledge and in comprehension. They cannot comprehend cotton gin. They cannot comprehend the implications of Southern culture in 1849 because of the cotton gin. Can't do it. They don't have the background. We're wasting our time and we are irrelevant. We've talked about that a lot. Relevancy. We have to take and guide our children to success in reading, and there aren't giant steps. There's great leaps later when they trust us, but there's not the early giant steps we're trying to get. We ask these kids to do the high dive when they cannot swim, and then we punish them. Then we punish them relentlessly for the normal behaviors of escaping the impossible task. Exactly what we would do, what I do every time. Comprehension, relevance. You can't understand what you do not have the language for. So we teach language. It is fun. The fun part, the Great Leaps piece is only a few minutes. The fun part of teaching is the teaching. I've got to throw in the joke I did, because we had a whole language. We have a whole language curriculum coordinator. She'd been an art teacher. Now she's coordinating curriculum, and I'm giving the kids who cannot read. And what task do you give the behavior teacher? With children who cannot read, they weren't mine. This was the start of the day with sustained silent reading. Oh, that's a wonderful idea. They give me the kids who can't read. Oh boy, that's fun, lady. And guess what? I can't help them read. I can't use that 15 minutes for anything constructive at all. I have to read. I can't do anything. Watch them read. I made a deal with her. If my children are in their seats, quiet, and have connected text in front of them, and they're turning the pages, does this meet your criteria of reading? And she goes, yes, sir. Excellent. So our school, we had a sister school in Russia, and there's lots of Russian magazines and stuff all around. Remember, I told you these kids could not read. They couldn't read Hop on Pop. So I had them, and they were normal IQ. And so I just put in like Russian National Geographics and Russian, all kinds of fun magazines and stuff. And so she comes into my room, and everybody's sitting quietly, meeting every criteria of the behavior we set up. And then she pulls me out into the hall to lambast me. Those books aren't even in English. Not part of our deal. Are they turning the pages? Yep. Why don't you go back and ask one what he's reading? Remember this about our children who cannot read, who are forced in torture every day to pretend like they're paying attention and stuff. They're the best fakers in the whole world. They know how to play like they're getting along so they don't get punished. So go ask anybody what he's reading. They'll tell you, even though they're not reading at all. It's the whole language, people. Sustained silent reading for kids who can't read. How about diary writing for children who cannot read? We're doing this craziness in the school. And when you try to say it's craziness, they look at you like you're some kind of apostate. You know? And you're looking at me like I'm crazy. You're crazy. Let's teach our children to read. Come on, I can do it. And if there's too many of them, I can get other people to do it. Let's make a difference. Let's be relevant. And as far as comprehension goes, I can get them there. I can get them there. Trust me. But it's got to be one step at a time. They got to learn how to swim before they jump off that big board of yours. Give me a date. Give me a date. We'll meet it. The Micanopy kids, they're 50 words a minute. I told them by June, we'll hit 100. We did. And they're happy and they're enjoying it. And one little girl may be cruising in on 126. But the relevance of your stories and the appropriateness of your task and building clearly, one step leads to another. Essence. Success builds success. Essence.
Yeah. With that, I want to open it up to y'all. If you guys have any questions or anything, we're at like kind of the 40-minute mark here, and questions or things to share in regards to reading comprehension before we go back to the worthless trivia. I don't think anybody got the answer right from last week, but
nobody's even close. Okay. All right, let's go it again. Here we go.
Yeah, if you come up with any question real quick though, feel free to, unmute yourself. This is all just silly fun stuff at the end here.
Yeah,
But
you guys in New York, ain't got a chance. Listen to my language, ain't got a. I love it.
Marie, you have something real quick?
Do you need help writing stories?
You know what? We always need help sharing them and putting them out in the Great Leaps community for people to read them, put them in where they want to. And let's talk about those extra stories running from 6th to 9th grade and that idea of building up the longer stuff and giving children a bank to go to on this kind of stuff, and us setting up the computer technology to be able to measure and to report back to us in a meaningful words per minute. And even you just gave me a neat idea as it happens. Even what the words per minute looks like at minute 1, minute 2, minute 3. What kind of movement are we getting there? All kinds of wonderful things are opening up here as we move into our next steps. We're other stories I need. I don't know how to do this yet. Is I have to deal with recidivism, especially in COVID world. They're going to lose some ground here. And that's just normal. If you're not at the independent rate, you're going to go backwards. I don't care what program you're using. If you're not at independent reading, our children at risk are going to go backwards. Well, Great Leaps has to detect it and intervene. We're seeing it, and that's the kind of the fun stuff we're into developing. And so we may need a whole lot of stories to build into the decision-making capacity of what AI, artificial intelligence, can begin doing with the powers of precision teaching, what we know. This is fun stuff. And the task is immense. Please know the task is immense. And we compete with universities and buildings, but we're on the right track. The kid comes first, must be relevant, build joy and success. That supersedes my philosophy every single time. That's the cornerstone.
Yeah. So I guess
if you do contest, people ain't going to have a chance. Ain't gonna. But last week, what was the prize? $25?
Yeah. So to set the stage for those who weren't here last week, we're kind of doing a new thing with each of these. They're bi-weekly, but we're setting up. I guess I've learned my dad is the king of worthless trivia, so we're setting up. Every week we're gonna ask one of his worthless trivia questions and have you submit your answer to his email, and if somebody gets it right, we'll announce that winner at the next one. We do these every other Friday, and if nobody gets it right, which is what happened this past time, we're gonna double the pot, so it's gonna be now a $50.
No, we added, we just double it this time.
Well, yeah, okay. This time, yeah, it's gonna double. Not every time.
Redoubling does. Well, $1 million.
Yeah. So anyway, this time it'll double the pot to $50, but it's gonna be an Amazon digital gift card if you're able to get the answer right. But you have to win. You have to be here next time to kind of receive the award. So if you get it right, but you're not here, no luck for you. But
well, if nobody else gets it right, you'll win it next time if you can come on.
Right, that's true.
Here's it's a simple one. I used just a simple Southern word, and man, I've got Kentucky and North Carolina and Ocala to worry about now. Okay, the correct pronunciation of this word that has 3 apostrophes, correctly spelled, has 3 apostrophes, and I'm not making this stuff up. It's a real kind of word. And it has 3 apostrophes in it. And the correct pronunciation is Jaws, just like Jaws, the movie. That's the correct pronunciation. To win, you tell me, you take the apostrophes out and tell me what it stands for. What is it? And use it in a sentence. And so since we've gone 1 week by, I give a clue. Your first apostrophe it's a possessive. Okay, that should make it a whole lot easier, and I hope I get defeated because I got some other absolutely worthless questions that you can't Google. I Googled,
Yeah,
I
I
Googled
tested
this.
it.
I Googled this. They got the stupidest things that nobody would ever say. I guarantee not only have I said, Charles, I've said it in public, and they understood what I was asking. And when I throw it to you, you'll understand what I'm saying. I hope. I haven't
Yeah.
had trouble in New York City yet.
Well, this one I can figure it out, and it tracks when he gave the answer. It is legitimate. So as bizarre as it sounds, there is a correct answer here.
Colin, you want to say who we got lined up in 2 weeks? We have guest stars.
Yeah, so next time we come together 2 weeks from today, we have, I believe it's Leah, who is been doing some great work at a local church with, basically kids in the community that are struggling with their reading, and she's kind of providing them instruction and a program from like a, community-based standpoint. I know we got a lot of people here in the public school system, but we wanted to bring in somebody to talk with that's, addressing this reading crisis from the kind of community-based standpoint, and talk with her about her experience. So,
Well, from what I see with this group, you can be an incredible help to her. She's working with lower socioeconomic students of extreme poverty, and with huge reading problems. And everybody here, from what I can see, has huge wealth of experience as she speaks to us and perhaps brings up questions, and your insights will be invaluable as you begin helping this huge piece of our country that, in my opinion, is being blatantly ignored. When I hear what the generals that they want teaching our thousands, if not tens and hundreds of thousands of children to read, they want generals in this battle. I want soldiers. We have plenty of generals. I don't need you to have the 30 years of military college to come teach this kid how to read. I need people on the front lines teaching our kids of incredible need so they can join our society. And so here is one group doing it, and there are many groups doing it, but here's a group doing it with joy and success.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that conversation. I hope you guys will join for that. And yeah, again, happy birthday coming up Saturday to my dad. I'm really appreciative that everybody joined us, and I really like the participation that we got from everybody today. I think that made it a lot more of a, interesting and lively discussion. So
It's a lot more fun.
It is. And yeah, with that, for the answer, remember to submit it to ken@greatleaps.com. That's his email if you think you know it. You can have multiple submissions. It's up
Wow.
to you, but but
in Kentucky, you're going to die when you hear it, because you heard it. You heard it. I know you've heard it.
I'm thinking.
Yeah. But yeah, so with that, I mean, I think that pretty well wraps it up. If you guys have ideas as well for future topics for us to talk about, just let us know. Shoot an email to myself or my dad. And yeah, thanks again, everybody.